his name on it? That must be that first one there. Okay.
The next Hero Award goes to Shakar, the Happy Farmer, founding director of Saguna Rural Foundation, in honor of Shakar's development of the renowned environmentally sound Saguna Regenerative Technique.
Thank you. Go ahead and have a seat. Well, I didn't know Shakar until I believe yesterday morning.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And we traveled together all day yesterday throughout various farms in Michigan, so we had a lot of time to talk. And I don't even know where to begin in relation to this. So I know that Shakar's from India, and that he came to the University of California, Davis in 1970, okay, to work on a master's degree. And after that, he stayed in California for about 4 years, okay, and working in industry. And something that I find very, very interesting is during that time you were working with potato chips, but a potato chip that became known as Pringles.
Yeah.
And so I would like to, I'm very curious to know more about what your role was in the development of Pringles.
Well, I want to thank first for the bird family, the whole family, Dr. Meridia, for giving me opportunity to be here today and be with you all. So thank you much. I was under pressure yesterday in the morning when he was to come to pick us up and going to take to the, I didn't know how to greet him. I didn't know such a great personality. And when I met him, I felt so nice. Instantly, I was very comfortable and I knew exactly where I was going to be, what I was going to be talking, and I was very, very comfortable with him. About Pringles, I studied food science and technology, and after finishing food science and I took up several jobs. But my last job was to work with Laura Scudder's, a company which was into snack food industry in California. And it was 73, 74, 75, when American president was worried that, I don't know if I should say this about Americans, but they say everywhere that American person cannot survive if he or she doesn't get hamburger and potato chips. I don't know if that's right. That's right, okay. So, American president was worried that the GIs, the forces were operating in Vietnam and they couldn't get potato chips because Vietnam doesn't grow potatoes. So hamburger patties were shipped very comfortably, but potato chips were not available. So the president then, I don't remember exactly whether it was Lyndon Johnson or somebody, he appealed to all food technologists that we want potato chips that will be compactable and not bulky, and that will have longer shelf life, because regular potato chips has 2 weeks. So he wanted longer shelf life. And here it is, all the food technologists all over different companies were working, and they were working, and these potato chips, Pringles was born, which is made, potato flakes are reconstituted, a thin sheet is made, the molds come and they make the patties which are oblong. And when they go in the frying pan, they rise, the patties rise. So as the patties rise, a different mold comes and presses it down to give that shape. And this is how those chips were formed. Thank you.
Very interesting story. And I want to add on to that something about Pringles that you probably don't know. And that is the last time that Kareem Maridi and I were in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, Pringles were served as the greatest of delicacies. So, something that I have learned in the past 2 days about your technique, okay, that it has a lot of benefits. The technique that he has developed basically reduces input costs, increases productivity, increases soil health, and also creates much less, atmospheric emissions in relation to that. And so in 1976, your father got in touch with you and basically said, we want you to come home to India. And basically you went home, and it took a while, for you to become the happy farmer that you are today. But tell us a little bit about, we don't have time to go through the whole process, but tell me a little bit about your farm today for rice production, which is no-till. He does use herbicides, in relation to that. And in his part of India, they can raise 3 crops per year. They don't have snow like we had this morning. And so while rice is his major crop, he also rotates it with other crops. And basically everything that I just said are things that I've learned from Shekhar in the past 24 hours. So you build a little bit on that, and don't hit tourism yet. We'll get to that in a minute.
All right. Okay. You are professor, and anybody can understand why he's professor. He can remember I said it once and he remembers it precisely. And so it's so perfectly well. So yes, rice is the main crop. We receive, if not snow, we receive 150 inches of rainfall in 4 months. So that's worse than the snow. Everything gets washed away. So lots of water, lots of rainfall, and it's many times in the form of cyclones. So in that situation, we cannot grow any other crop but rice, because rice can withstand standing water and even flooded condition. So rice was the only crop, and I inherited the degraded land. The land was terribly degraded. It was undulating, and the technique was such that it was highly labor intensive. So you had to have labor to do transplanting work, which you have to go knee deep into the muck and stand there bending in land, doing transplanting for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. It's very tough work. So naturally, it's very difficult now to get the laborers at that particular time, because in a short time, everybody wants to do the rice transplanting. So it was so humiliating that you are ready to pay the worker in advance and whatever they demand, but still the workers cheat on you. They promise that they will come, but they don't come. And it's humiliating, it's hurting. So that time I decided that I don't want to stick with this situation. I will do whatever it takes, but I will take away plowing, puddling, and transplanting of rice. And I was after it with a lot of tenacity. Did every experiment possible for that for almost 10 to 12 years. And after that, I found this technique, how to grow rice. Everybody, all over, rice is one of the major food that is consumed by all over the world. Almost, I would say 60-70% people of the world consume rice as a staple food. But this rice cultivation, everybody thinks that needs a lot of water. Knee-deep water has to be there. But that's not true. This is what I found out. that rice withstands that, but it doesn't have to have that. So it was by several trials and errors, some accidents, and I came up with this technique to grow rice on the raised bed, and that too not ploughing and puddling, direct seeded rice. And it so happened that I wanted to get rid of only ploughing, puddling and transplanting, but when we got this first crop ready in 2011, I was trying for it since 1996, but I got the first crop ready in a small plot of about this much size in 2011. Then I found out that it was not only I saved on labor, not only my crop was resilient, my production was double. In a plot where I was expecting 3 bags of 300 kilo of paddy, I got 550 kilo of paddy, almost double. And this was unique. So when I saw that, I replicated that in 4 or 5 other plots of my farm the next year, which was 2012. 2012, I found the same thing again. Then I started taking it to the farmers. The farmers, I was looking for only 10 farmers to try my technique. And I was ready to go to their farm and work with them and all that. But they were not, I didn't get even single farmer. They said it's not possible. I said try it. But they said no, it's not possible and we don't want to try, which is stupid. According to them, it was stupidity. It was a big laugh. So I promised them that, okay, anybody who will promise it, who will try it, that, and if you lose anything, I will give you double the amount than what you lose. And then instead of 10 farmers, I got 30 farmers. So, it works. The promise, the incentive works. So this incentive worked, and I got 30, and all 30 farmers got the double yield. So anyway, the story goes on and on. Everywhere this is happiness. This is an amazing technique. It is now being used for several other crops. But as he said, it reduces cost of production by half. It reduces water requirement by half. I don't know if any one of you know, to produce, when you bring 1 kilo of paddy, rice in your home, you are actually bringing 3,000 kilos or liters of water home, because that much water is required to produce 1 kilo of rice. We reduce water requirement by half or even less than that. Then the yield increased, so many other, but the most important thing, which thank you that you did not mention and you left it for me, the farmers became happy. That was the biggest gain that we found out. That farmer becoming happy, and that to rice farmer, the rice farmer in the whole world is the most worried and tired farmer. He wants to give it up, but the rice farmers become happy and confident.
Well, thank you on that. A very, very unique technique that I think has a lot of benefits, maybe for things other than rice. Now, yesterday we visited Morrissey Farm, and we visited George's farm. We visited Jim Cohn's farm. And they don't know that I'm going to say this yet, but after we left, those farms, in all 3 cases, Shekhar said, that's a business. Those are business people in addition to being farmers. And I've never said this publicly before, but George Bird has never really felt very negative about agrotourism, but I have never really been a proponent of agrotourism. But after spending 24 hours with you, I'm now a proponent, of agrotourism. And in addition to you being a happy farmer, you are also an astute businessman. So just tell us, he has 50 acres that he farms, and that's a large farm, in India. But tell us a little bit about how many guests you have per week, and what they do on your farm.
Agrotourism I have defined as an activity organized by farmer himself on his active farm, where leisure learning and fun is combined together. So there has to be leisure learning and fun combined together. One of the funniest thing and the funny activity that we offer to our guests who come to our farm is we give them WB ride. And WB ride, everybody, I invite you to come to our farm and we take that WB ride. It's unique. Nowhere else in the whole world that you can get that ride. Only at our farm. And you want to know what's WB ride? That's water buffalo ride. The buffalo will be taken in the water and we will put you on top of the buffalo. So that water buffalo ride we will give you. So this water buffalo ride is something very funny, but there are many other things. There is, so it started accidentally. Anuradha and we got married. Anuradha is cancer immunologist. I had returned from America, came from dignified situation, and suddenly we lost all our dignity because we became farmers. And then I found out that human being to survive and perform, we say we need three things: food, shelter, and clothing. Is that what they say? The same three things in America also? Yeah, but I believe it's the fourth thing, and that is dignity. And dignity must come first for human being to survive and perform. And farmers, at least in our country, don't get dignity. They are looked down. He's a farmer, the last guy. But this is what it so happened. Accidentally I became a snake man. I learned to catch snakes, and people started coming to see snakes at our farm. And then I started showing them, telling them different crops, irrigation system. This is how agrotourism started. We are pioneers of agrotourism concept in India. That started 1985.
I think we'll,
Yeah.
I think we're going to stop it there. Okay. I'm just going to tell you that from Shekar's ag tourism thing, okay, there are about 20 at least other things that we learned about at your noon seminar, okay, today. So with that, we want to have another round of applause to honor you.
Just a second. Can we have a picture here like that?
Sure, or we can, we'll get a picture now, but we can also do that later.
Okay, thank you. This is Anuradha.
Our third and final hero award this evening goes to Jason Roundtree. And Jason Roundtree is the Michigan State University Charles Stewart Mott Distinguished Professor of Sustainable Agriculture. And Jason works primarily on the animal side of the industry, but you can't have an animal side of the industry without the primary producers, correct? Okay, and so I have asked Jason, as soon as I give him his plaque here, to come forward and talk to us for a few minutes tonight about the program that he has put together and also his vision for the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, great. Thanks so much.
I'll sit in the comfortable chair.
All right, great. Shakar, I don't know how I'm gonna beat you, man. Snakes, water buffaloes, and the prettiest mustache I've ever seen in my entire life. Beautiful. So I'm gonna stop. Thank you, Dr. Bird and family for the honor. It truly is an honor. And I'm a Michigan State grad. I got my PhD here. My wife, who's here, also got a degree here. And the one thing I want to say about Michigan State University, at my role and where I am in my career, is I've had the opportunity to stand on the shoulders of giants. My mentor, Dr. Hill, is here tonight, Gretchen. She was also trained by Dr. Elwin Miller, who is a renowned monogastric nutritionist. I've also had the opportunity to work with Dr. Harlan Ritchie, Dr. Dave Hawkins, just really icons in our industry. My friend and colleague, Dr. Bruno Basso, has introduced Dr. Joe Ritchie, who was the Nolan Chair, into our work and life. And he's well into his 80s and still contributing to our work. And then, of course, the work that you've done, Dr. Bird. I'm going to talk a little bit later about Dr. Harwood and the work he's done also as a CS Mott professor. And so it's a great place. Go green. Amen. That's right. And so in 2003, I left Michigan and we went to South Louisiana. I was on faculty at LSU for 6 years. I grew up not far from there, and I had this really weird opportunity from Hurricane Katrina and Rita. And in that process, extension people were considered first responders to food-based disasters. And so within a week of Katrina, I was south of New Orleans trying to herd cows. And we saw cows that started the storm east of the Mississippi River, and we found them on the west side of the Mississippi River. And we were in a 25 to 30 foot storm surge. You probably experienced 10-meter surges yourself. And the fact is that in that framework, I saw communities, agriculture, civilization just leveled, nothing left. And in that context, I started thinking about resilience, but I really didn't know that's what it was called. And started thinking about getting as much fossil fuel out of agriculture as possible. Because we were so dependent on fertilizers, fuels, herbicides, things of that nature. And so my mentor, Dr. Hawkins, retired in 2009, and so I had the opportunity to come back to Michigan State University. And I was offered the opportunity to oversee Lake City Research Center, which is up around Traverse City, just a bit south. And so I started trying to mimic what does this resilient, low input, like reduced fossil fuel system look like in beef cattle grazing. As you know, that 70% of our agricultural lands are actually grazing lands globally. And how we manage livestock has huge indications on how our systems respond to shocks. And often, as you know, cows are kind of getting beat up because of methane, a little more than our rice farmer friends. And I want to tell y'all that our research suggests that it isn't the cow, it's the how. It's how we manage. And so ultimately, I read a book by a scientist named Dr. Jan Bonsma, who was from South Africa, and he wrote a book called Man Must Measure. And it was his career on how he measured everything in the system that he was managing in South Africa. And it really influenced me, and I effectively adopted that concept of measuring a lot of things in the system. I want to be sure that our research and how we do things, the system comes first, the research comes second. We don't let the research dictate the system. We want to mimic what farmers and ranchers do throughout the United States. And so we also started measuring soil carbon. We measure methane, we measure nitrous, we measure all those things. And what we found after about 6 years of management is that we effectively, in a grass finishing system, through adaptive management and through really trying to manage significantly, that we could lower finishing times by 50% without using any nitrogen fertilizer, without using any pesticides or herbicides. And that's been one of the most cited papers, or actually reference papers, in agriculture science. And so from that, I had the opportunity through the pandemic to have some time off. It's crazy how many meetings we have in academia. I'm sorry, George and Kathy. And the fact is, I had a lot of time to think about building what does like the most large encompassing project look like in grazing systems. And I worked and led a project where we built a $19.2 million project to assess management's influence on ecological function in our nation's grazing lands. Our team is at the table. I had the opportunity to introduce them earlier, but we're in our mid part of that. We're monitoring right now as I speak on 60 ranches throughout the United States, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Wyoming, and Michigan. And we are really the leader, Michigan State, in this work, in understanding how management influences carbon, water, the aspects of resilience. And so that's our primary work. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is a new center for regenerative agriculture. I say new, we're in our third year. I had the opportunity to potentially leave MSU around that pandemic time and become the vice president of research for the largest private ag research foundation in the nation. They have a research budget similar to the College of Agriculture at MSU. And I effectively thought I was gone. You know, it was getting us closer to home and it was a great opportunity. I actually talked to Dr. Smith, to George in the room, and he said, hey, hold on real quick, let me check on a few things. And in that opportunity, I was able to stay here. And part of that role was to assume the C.S. Mott Distinguished Professor role. And I take that role very seriously, and it's something that I value greatly. I know many of you have known Dr. Harwood and Dr. Ham, who were my predecessors. And so in that lens, I was pushed by George, supported by my chair, Kathy, to form a Center for Regenerative Agriculture. And I thought it was best to identify our objectives for that center through some quotes by Dr. Harwood that I found over the years. And one quote that Dr. Harwood said on agriculture systems is, sustainability in agriculture begins with understanding the system in which you operate. You can't fix what you don't see as broken. He also said that farmers are the cornerstone of innovation when they are supported by science and empowered to adapt. He said that education isn't about telling people what to do, it's about giving them the tools to see their challenges differently. And then finally, with respect to stewardship, he says stewardship is not about preserving what we had, it's about improving it for those that come after us. And that last comment to me is about what regeneration is all about. Regenerative agriculture, the term was coined by Dr. Robert Rodale in the late 70s. I think Dr. Harwood operationalized it. I think Dr. Bird worked and operationalized that term. And so now we're on the cusp of building this new approach to where we would love to see every acre in Michigan have some level of regenerative agriculture adopted on it. We use those terms of soil health principles to use that. And the beauty of regenerative agriculture is that it's a gradient. Big farms, small farms, all in between farms can apply soil health principles to improve their resilience. So it isn't qualitative like you are or you're not, it's a gradient of adoption. And so in that lens, where we're headed, Dr. Bird, is we have what I call like this three-headed beast that's evolving in this center. Dr. Bruno Basso is here, and he's a co-director. As you know, he's a leader, a global leader in modeling and understanding how management is influencing ecological function. Funny enough, we didn't work together for a decade, and Al Gore, right? Like Dr. Gore, Vice President Gore kind of indirectly put us together, and we've been really great colleagues ever since. I'm kind of the boots on the ground person, but Bruno, his modeling is world renowned, and we're gonna really try to put as much as we can to see that modeling adopted on all the acres in Michigan. And then the other person I'd like to talk about, we can't forget about our supply chains. And Mr. Ian Olson is in the room as well. Ian just came to us as a senior director for supply chain global for McDonald's. And understanding that as we talk about regenerative ag, we can't not think about the people that are purchasing these products. And how do we trace emissions? How do we trace influences? And Ian is here to help bring that supply chain to light. And so I think we're on some really great opportunities. We're working with farmers, we're working with supply chains, consumers, to really try to increase resilience for the state of Michigan and beyond. And so with that, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm very honored to be here tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. I think I want to, in conclusion, make a couple comments about the Charles Stewart Mott Endowed Chair here at Michigan State University. That chair, Jason, came about because a former chairperson of the Department of Crop and Soil Science, Dr. Elder Paul, went to the Mott Foundation and was able to convince them to provide those resources to Michigan State University. And basically, the first person in that position, okay, Richard Harwood, had to retire because of some health issues within his family. And I remember the winter that he announced his retirement. When we were out at extension meetings with farmers, I actually saw people crying in the back row because Richard Harwood was retiring. So those were very, very appropriate quotes that you made tonight in relation to your position. So let's give Jason one more round of applause. And I would like to now conclude by thanking everybody for attending various parts of the day. And I think if you look at your cell phone or your watch, we are just about right on time in relation to that. But last year, we found that a lot of people wanted to stay around and talk a little bit afterwards. So basically this year we have put the next 30 minutes in for just informal conversation as people desire. So have very safe trips home, and let's all continue the work that we're doing, because we know agriculture is humankind's greatest innovation. Well, we survived.
What's that?
We just keep working.
Well, this is, I'm part of the day.
I'm going to find
I've given, yeah, I I have to get a girl worried about what's going to happen. It's Yes. I have a sister. You can take pictures. Yeah, Kathy, Dan can take it, I'll send it to you. Okay, well, let's all just sit right there. Yes.
Now I can go sit down. Go.
George, come in. George, they want you in there. This was nice.
I got my house.